Okay, you ready to rock and roll?
I'm good.
Okay. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Shifted Cinema Podcast, a podcast about movies and experiences. I'm your host, Holland Rains, and once again, I'm here with my good friend, Vinnie Ham.
Hello.
So, we saw The Witch this past weekend, and we're going to do a little review segment, very short and sweet, and then after that, we're going to get to the very spoiler-heavy discussion. So we'll give you a warning when the spoiler section's coming up. So if you don't want to listen to that and wait till you've seen the movie to hear our thoughts, it'll do you good. This is directed by Robert Eggers. He won the best. He was the winner of the Best Director of the 2015 Sundance Film Festival for The Witch, and has a pretty awesome cast of people that I didn't realize I had seen in a lot of other things until I looked up the actors.
They were. It was very well acted. Definitely very well acted.
Yeah, we will get to that during the review. So do we just want to jump into this, or do you have any like little caveat thoughts?
Well, what's the first thing you want to start on? And I think we'll go from there.
Okay, so the first thing I'd like to talk about are the aesthetics and the mood. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the trailer or the multiple trailers. I know I only watched the first trailer because that's kind of how I am with movies. I try not to watch too many if I'm getting excited for them, because I don't want too much of the plot doled out.
I'd recommend going into it without watching the second if you haven't already.
Did you watch the second one?
I did not see the second one, and I found it a more intriguing experience going in, just seeing basically a slight glimpse of what this movie has to offer you.
Yeah, it's best to go into this movie. I think with any movie, personally, I think it's best to go in not really knowing too much. That's just a personal opinion. But what I think the first trailer for The Witch did, the only one I've seen, was that it gave us enough to kind of know what the movie was about. So as a general plot synopsis, it's about a Puritan family that is exiled from their community due to some sort of religious disagreement.
Called The Plantation.
Was that what it was called?
Yes, called The Plantation. Yes,
okay, so the community was called The Plantation, and they go out into the wilderness to seek a new frontier, a new home, a new holy land, if you will. And
small pilgrimage.
It's a very small pilgrimage. And I think the way the movie tells this opening is very well done. The minimal dialogue. Everything is just shot after shot to kind of construct what's happening in front of us. Very well done. We'll save more of that for the discussion section in the second part. But what they don't know is that they've somehow nested on the ground of a witch, apparently.
The land is evil.
The land is very evil. And
already claimed by evil.
And they find that out. So, if you watch the trailer, you already know this looks like is an extremely moody and atmospheric film, and that is where all of the tension and the horror factor comes in. I know that I think it was Rolling Stone, in the trailer, one of the little review quotes was like, it's like Stanley Kubrick making out with Satan. And I would say it's more like Stanley Kubrick having like slow, sensuous, like a blood orgy with Satan.
Slow and sensuous and blood orgy. Well, that's a very interesting blood orgy.
The movie wasn't very bloody, which is fine because I don't really...
I felt the blood. We can get to this later. I think I might have something to say about the blood level. I think the blood level actually has something to say in that in itself.
True. But another element to this movie that I think made it very impactful for me as an audience member was the sound design. It's very minimalistic. We're not completely encased in nature. There's many scenes where it seems like the sound kind of becomes dull, like is dropped out and replaced with either a looming soundtrack or just kind of silence.
I felt, yes, the silent is sort of at times it's as if the movie is trying to remove, like take that sense away from you. You can't now listen to see what's going on. I guess sharpens your focus visually.
Yeah.
What's going on.
Yeah.
I felt, it succeeds in doing that.
It definitely succeeds in that. And I think it also succeeds in the structure of the film. I think it hits all the traditional movie beats, but does it in a very original and engaging way. And I think that's mostly because of our our protagonist, played by Anya Taylor-Joy Thomason.
Thomason, yes.
Thomason, she's a fantastic actress. Like we said, the acting across the board is just it's grade fucking A.
And you still only like also with not seeing the trailer, you don't expect that because you see almost little to no acting in the trailer, and like that made it even bigger surprise going into that. Yeah,
definitely, it makes it even a bigger surprise because. And I don't know if you remember the night that we watched some of this movie on Netflix, something called Vampire Academy.
Yeah, I tried to block that memory, I think.
Very horrible film.
Not important.
Horrible beyond repair. Just absolute garbage. It's one of those movies where watch like the first 20 minutes if you want a good chuckle. Apparently, the Anya Taylor-Joy lady, young woman, was one of the stars in that film.
Star.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe we should take a revisit.
Maybe we should. Maybe that was actually the film where we give The Witch a run for its money. Maybe. We didn't finish it, so we don't have a leg to stand on. But what I love about her character, the character of Thomason, is that the movie is really this very odd and foreboding coming-of-age tale. And you wouldn't really guess that at first. It's not until you get down to the subtextual and like kind of metaphorical level of the message of the film. And that will be discussed in depth within the second section because I don't feel like you can fully discuss those elements.
The film is an onion.
It's a
dense onion.
Very,
will make
very
dense
very
onion.
Uncomfortable. An unpeeled onion at that. And this is something we talked about right after we saw the movie, was that one of the things that The Witch does very well is that it keeps up with some very tropey-esque imagery in regards to witches.
Yes,
and
what
we consider
what we
evil.
expect or what they thought then witches did.
Yeah.
What a woman would naturally be accused of if accused of being what she's doing to be accused of witchcraft.
Yeah.
Type deal, yes.
But I mean, like in terms of like the more like evil imagery, we have like the old hag.
Yes,
we have the witch that looks younger. We have the black goat. We have the ground not giving the soil is too
we didn't
dense.
look into the hair, did we?
The hair?
The hair?
I guess we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Because I don't remember the hair. But what Eggers does right with this film is that he takes this imagery, and there's this really good quote from an article on The Verge that you can find in the show notes below, where he says, "But the reason we did the research for this film was that the contemporary idea of a witch is a silly plastic Halloween decoration." So he really tried to get into the mindset of what the people of the 1600s would actually be thinking about when they thought of witches, that it was a real thing. It was as real as like the dirt.
You know what movie comes to mind when you say that?
What's that?
Hocus Pocus. Perfect, perfect marriage of perfect marriage of the two, of the traditional and the trope.
Yeah.
Or of the cliche, yeah.
Yeah, but Eggers does he shoots this film with such conviction that I think for the, and I hate saying this because I know it sounds so pretentious, but for the uneducated moviegoer, they could watch this and either A, find it boring or find the imagery not potentially horrifying.
There were examples all around us in the movie theater.
We were not the only ones. I have a few Facebook groups that bitched about their movie going experience. And lastly on the list, so like as I mentioned, Eggers shoots this movie with such conviction that it is so hard to look at this. You can look at this film in both a metaphorical light and a literal light, which is really awesome. But I think what the standout was, besides the amazing cinematography, besides the sound design, really does boil down to me the acting and the writing. Because I didn't expect to be so engaged in a film that's using Old English. And I was
and it becoming, us like kind of like maybe some subtitles with this will work. I mean, the accents laid on heavy. I mean, they kind of go hard in that, and it was done really well.
They were really heavy, but there were so many scenes later on when the movie becomes more dialogue heavy, where you completely feel for all of these characters, whether you don't like the character or not. It's like hard not to have some sort of emotion.
Finally see where they all stand on the events that's come to pass and see their contradictions among each other.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of the best horror going movie experiences I've had in a while, even though the actual experience in the theater was horrible. I love the movie. I can't wait to watch it again and really dissect the movie on a technical level, as well as trying to possibly break even more into the latent subtext of the film.
Yeah, I'm already ready to see it again.
I'm probably going to see it
yeah.
again this weekend. But I don't really believe in review scales. But if I did, I'd probably give it like, I don't know, 5 witches riding brooms against the foreboding moonlight
Out of
5.
7 cats.
Out of 7
Black
spooky cats.
That's one thing we didn't have. Spoiler alert, there were no black cats in this film.
True, there wasn't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But there was Black Phillip.
Black Phillip.
The real star of the film.
The real star of the film. Did all of his original acting.
He did. All of his own stunts, too. Anyways, guys, that is our kind of brief review. Not too brief because it is clocking in at like 11 minutes now. We are going to go into the discussion.
Yeah, you were looking for 5 minutes of that.
I was looking for 5 minutes, but it's kind of hard not to talk a lot about this film and to really condense my feelings for it.
Yeah, that's right, because when you do this part, that's where I'm like, okay, I don't know what I should say and what I shouldn't say.
Yeah, because I'll just get into it and keep going. So if you don't want to have the movie spoiled for you, if you're really worried about that, turn the podcast off after you watch.
No, just
the movie.
mute it.
Just mute it.
Mute it. Let it play.
But yeah, after you see the movie, give this section, the discussion portion, a listen to see if we're bringing in any new light to the film. If there's anything you possibly didn't understand, hopefully this will help you out, or you might be interested in hearing what we have to say.
What are your thoughts?
I'm stuttering a lot tonight. I apologize. Anyways,
7 beers.
7 beers in. So I think before we dive into this discussion, we need to give a little storytelling experience about what it was like going to the movie theater for this. So I know that when I had asked my buddy Jared to tag along with us, we were both very anxious to see this movie. We had decided to go to a theater that was the closest to both of us, which is the Wilder Regal Cinema. So we're in Northern Kentucky.
It's not a bad theater.
It's not a bad theater at all. No, we are right outside Cincinnati. We are right outside. Oh my God, what the fuck's wrong with me? Right outside Cincinnati.
You can literally see Cincinnati as you drive on the way to the theater.
To the theater. Yet, I guess where Wilder is situated,
it's an interesting place where you kind of see the country slowly creeping up north, pretty much, and that's where it is currently.
It's a very interesting crevice of
just more
country
rural people in general out that way.
So Jared had made a joke to me like, oh my God, we're going to get in there. So they're going to be a bunch of teenagers or a bunch of rednecks. And I kind of thought, we're going on a Sunday night. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, at least we weren't going on Friday.
What's the worst that could happen? Doesn't do justice to the amount of bullshit we had to go through to fucking watch this movie.
Yeah, first off, that's where I didn't even know how to comment on the sound at first, because as a theater movie, the fact that there isn't a whole lot of sound, it's very minimalistic. You hear everything. I heard every snack that was opened. I heard every cough.
You ate a lot of snacks yourself, so you don't have
I was a little more quiet. And then,
you were trying, but usually what happens when you're eating snacks and you try to be quiet is that you're even louder because you're trying to delegate.
Hey, I pulled a lot of beef jerky out of that bag just so I wouldn't have to keep going back in. And I almost dropped some, and that stuff's expensive.
Well, you're a saint.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, there was a lot of rednecks in the movie theater.
Literally, the man who was so confused, he had to ask everyone, "Where's the witch?"
In the middle of the fucking movie, just dead silence. Where's the witch?
At which we had seen the witch. We had actually seen the witch, or I don't know if he was looking at too deep of a level, but yeah, we're pretty sure that was the witch.
I don't think he was trying to analyze this at a deep level. I think he was just pissed off that there wasn't a witch flying around zapping people with a wand, and maybe that's what they expected. There was the people in the same row we were in, and we were in one of the smaller theaters.
I think he was the type of person that's still waiting for the next Paranormal Activity to come out.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. I was actually I wasn't confused. I was just a little surprised at the amount of older couples that were there. The majority of the people there were older. Didn't expect that. I honestly thought we'd go in and it would be a bunch of high school students that were maybe like
And
seniors
at the
that had
same
turned 18.
time, I expected an older, crowd that we see to, maybe have a little bit more respect than this young crowd we were afraid of.
True.
No,
yeah,
not the
exact
case at
fucking
all.
opposite.
Not the case at all.
The people behind us wouldn't shut up. The people that were in the same row as us kept. You can't help but cough.
Literally.
I don't want to hold coughing.
That,
against
I
somebody.
felt bad for that guy because you go to a movie, you have a cough. You try to, if you can, you try to wait till a louder part to finally cough. He had no opportunity to cough. At
That
a decent
movie's
time.
so fucking silent.
There's
the whole time.
a lot of quiet.
And like any time that you get any sort of soundtrack, it's very brief.
Ominous too, like a kind of a slow moving build to
Yeah.
where like I don't even know
Very
when the
much
loud
so.
part is actually. Like, there's no hope.
It was just goofy. It was an all around goofy experience. But that being said, I know that it ruined it a bit for you. I was completely
That's why, I'm so eager to watch it
enraptured by
again.
the movie.
I'm
so-
glad you were able to just block it out.
I don't know. It just I think the only thing that really bothered me were the ladies behind us that kept talking even after.
Which
you asked
I
them
had to say something to twice.
That's the
twice.
worst. It's the worst having to tell people to shut up because it's like, hey guys, you just paid $10.50 to see this movie.
As
and
did
you're
we.
literally going to talk through the whole thing. Whatever. People have different movie watching expectations. Some people want to talk through movies. Whatever. So be it. So diving into this discussion.
The actual movie now.
Yeah, into the movie, not this weird experience we had. But that being said, the point that I wanted to bring up with telling this short story is that the setting in which you watch a film can drastically change your perception of the film.
Definitely did for me. That's why I needed to see it again. But like, were you gonna bring up the Esquire?
What about the Esquire?
Okay, my recommendation on it is if you want to see this film is if you happen to have a theater that may be more catered towards art-like films, as you were saying,
Like an independent theater,
yes,
an art house cinema.
definitely see it there. You're also supporting something that's a little bit better than a big chain cinema.
You're also going to be watching it with people that actually want to watch the fucking movie.
Yeah, people are going there as long as that's the atmosphere. People are going there for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, and before we dive into this, there was a couple that walked out when we saw it, which didn't necessarily surprise
The rednecks
me.
walked out.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Okay. So there was 2 walkouts total.
There was two walkouts.
Groups.
Oh,
of
I only
walkouts,
remember seeing
think.
one, but 2 doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
So diving in to this discussion, there's a few things that I want to tackle. And as somebody who's not religious, any sort of religious themes in movies always fascinate me. So I want to dissect some of the religious themes of The Witch, the feminist angle, because there's been a lot of articles about the feminist approach this movie takes. So before seeing the film, I did a lot of research, and that research mostly consisted of reading articles that had interviews with Robert Eggers, the director, or just some general thoughts about the movie that were more kind of brief, stuff on IndieWire, The Verge, AV Club. And this article from The Verge, which I mentioned earlier in the episode, and you'll find in the show notes, I think it's a really great interview. It really gets into his head on what he wanted to accomplish with this movie. And what he wanted to accomplish was what we mentioned earlier, trying to showcase the witch as though it was real to these people at this particular time. And if we look at this particular time, maybe I'm wrong. I don't have the exact statistics. I don't know if the statistics even exist. But
Or sort of like the level of fear, how big of a threat people believed this was.
I don't know if that exists, but I was going to talk about the amount of women that have died because they were accused of being a witch. And he kind of uses this in the interview as sort of a parallel for our modern society of women that could potentially be trampled on.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think that is an interesting concept. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the analogy, but what I do have some strong feelings about is the metaphorical and the literal interpretation of the film. So we had a long discussion last night about some of the more feminist-based approach in terms of film, feminist film theory. And I know you said you weren't too educated on it, and to be honest, I'm not very educated on it. But I think what this film sort of boils down to, and I could be wrong, maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I don't think I am, is that if we look at this at a completely metaphorical level, if we're looking at feminism as this way for women to rise above what is potentially holding them down. In this film, even though we're shown so much dread and what this family is going through and how much they lose in the process of moving to this new holy land, unquote. The main character Thomason, at the end of the film, after everyone is dead, she therein relinquishes her clothing, is naked, is led
born again.
She is born again as the coming of age. She has become a woman. There is nothing to hold her back from being free.
Based on that, we do hear dialogue earlier of suggesting the coming of woman piece when they were talking about perhaps marrying her off.
Yeah, they want to marry her off. She is menstruating essentially, so she is becoming a woman.
At which point,
and there's the really what I was getting at is she relinquishes her clothing. She's naked. She's born again. She is led by the Black Phillip the goat. Easily, I don't know why I think it's so funny that
this movie is in 1700s, but no, Black Phillip is not played by an African American man.
He is not.
He is a black goat.
He is a black goat that looks constantly stoned.
He's high. Yeah.
He looks high as fuck.
No,
that's so funny.
And it's natural because it's a goat, but I couldn't help but chuckle in those scenes that there's a couple scenes with him where it attempted to look ominous, but that kind of dumb goat look on his face is just like, oh yeah, that's dope.
It's really funny because you see pictures, any sort of satanic imagery of a goat being evil.
Yeah, that's with that first trailer, just that shot of him kind of bucking up, that was haunting in the trailer.
Because it's a 2-second shot.
Yeah, that
but then
was
after
crazy.
you see fucking Black Phillip sitting in a bowl, a thing of hay, looking stoned as hell, it's really hard to I took the movie seriously the whole time. I still had a good chuckle at Black Phillip. So towards the end of this film, Thomason, her parents have died. I'm not going to give all the details because I don't feel like going into every nook and cranny of the plot. She was accused of being a witch by her.
She is now liberated, though, from everything.
She is liberated from anything that could potentially hold her down or keep her subjugated. Black Phillip becomes this sort of looming figure of what we could perceive as Satan or Beelzebub. It is a man and says he will guide her.
Do they say? I think they actually do say the devil.
No, they probably mention the devil because they're
it's
puritanical Christians.
Okay,
so.
yeah, I obviously, Christian society. Okay, I didn't know if you were just trying to give a broad term for Satan.
I was,
think
because when we talked last night and I mentioned the idea of Satan, you seem to be like, well, was it Satan? And I'm like, we'll get into some of that discussion later. But she relinquishes her clothing. She follows Black Phillip into the woods where she sees the witches, and then she is finally free. The whole thing is creepy as hell. It's honestly one of my favorite endings to a film because it has such a weird duality to it.
I think also that the ending helped mirror with what happened, not in the very opening, but the beginning with. There's that that beautiful shot of what we perceive as
the head up against the moon.
Yeah, walking on a path and the moon real bright, kind of at the end of that path. And then at the end, the moon is in the shot again, but at a more reasonable size in the sky, and she's walking towards that giant tree and completely naked. And I thought those two shots kind of mirrored well, and the fact that one of the first, I guess sort of witch activities we saw was what happened to the baby in the beginning. And by no means,
baby got fucked up.
There was no slow build up to what happened to that baby. That just happened, and then we see slow build up, kind of smaller events becoming larger events, and then up to that. But I thought that was a very interesting opening.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Going back to the point that I'm trying to make, so I can segue into the rest of my notes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. She gets Black Phillip. Satan leads her, guides her through the woods to the group of witches who are all kind of reveling in their witch-likeness.
Other victims, perhaps.
We don't know, and really who these women are doesn't matter. But the point that what I'm trying to get at in terms of feminist film theory is that she is naked. So she is at one point.
As they all are.
As they all are. There's nothing to hide her from the elements. And the one thing I kept thinking was that she is naked. There's no sexualizing of her. If that makes any sense.
No,
Other than the
to
fact
me, it's
that she
almost
is
like I
naked
said,
and you're a pervert
the
and sexualized.
rebirth. I think is more what the nudity is for, because you know you are stripped of all of your worldly things and just have on you what you came into this world with. So I think there's a rebirth, a freedom there at the same time.
A freedom, and I think that's one of the core themes of this movie is freedom. We see that with the family leaving at the beginning because they want to adhere to their very staunch religious beliefs. We see that with
and we never find out what his belief was. That was different,
and that is really interesting.
That excommunicated him.
So freedom is the central theme, and at the end of the movie, she is finally free. She is naked, yet she is not sexualized. When we see the witches, I believe that you could make an argument that their movements are oddly sexual, but there is no man there to make it like an actual sexual act. This is all within themselves.
In that it's more of an empowerment act.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I find the imagery, like I said before, has this interesting duality to it because it's at one point evil, but on a metaphorical level, it does speak to being free in any way that you can. Not that I think that you should kill anybody or that anybody should die.
And I guess also we never truly know, because she is accused before she has even, from what we know, practiced any sort of witchcraft. She is accused of that.
Yeah.
So also, like, story-wise, I'm kind of left, interested. Now I'm wondering, like, if she was perhaps targeted by this evil the entire time.
Yeah.
Or if, like, she just it heavily influenced everyone, or she was the most susceptible to being influenced, I guess,
Possibly. And I think it's such an interesting concept to have both, like, two not conflicting ideologies, but, like, we live in a society where maybe I shouldn't say we live in a society. I surf YouTube a lot, and I come across a lot of anti-feminist YouTubers. And as somebody that considers himself a thinker and wants to kind of hear everybody, well, I want to hear everybody's point of view, even if I don't agree with it. Because my theory is like, even if you don't agree with it, you're probably still learning something from what's being said.
Yeah, you should look at aside from both
there
angles.
does seem to be this big backlash against feminist thought, and I think obviously this comes from the idea of, like, third wave feminism and authoritarianism to a degree, and that's a subject for a different time. I think this movie does have a lot of feminist elements in it. I just find it so compelling that the movie is a horror film, and that, like, I think for most people, they'd watch that ending and be like, oh, that's fucked up. She's a witch now. And I look at the movie and I'm like, oh no, she's free. And that's the feeling I get, even though she's like, when she sees the witches and they all start to rise into the air and she herself starts to rise and the music becomes this odd cacophony of moans and, like, out of tune instruments, I still felt like, oh, she's free, she's alive, she can do what she wants.
The smile on her face, and
it's
maybe the only time during the movie we see her smile.
Possibly,
at least that late in the film.
I just find that so. I think to be able to do that as a writer and director, to have two conflicting feelings and make them both work, is just shows to me the testament that, like, of how great a film this is.
It's almost, the way the film was made. It's not like we were made to think she's evil by any means.
Oh yeah,
because at the end you don't even know. Like I'm saying, she could just be the victim of this evil.
Yeah.
At the same time, but something, it's enticing to her, and she is enticed.
One thing, and I meant to bring this up when I was talking about Thomason at the end, walking through the woods naked, and, like, as you said, it was a rebirth. In terms
escorted by Black Phillip.
Black Phillip, the best escort. So Laura Mulvey was a film theorist. She wrote a very influential essay called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. So within this essay, she is basically saying that, and this was written in the 70s, a different time for cinema, that women within film sort of are there just for men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were they started off being sexualized, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's what she's getting at, is that the woman is there either for male gaze or to help the man. That the woman never really breaks out of that role to become something more. And I find The Witch so compelling, especially since I read this article.
One thing is, like, not to be too much of a pervert here, but when she takes her clothes off, like, she's got a much more curvy body under those, very straightforward clothes than you would expect. So she's not sexualized at all in the film until
Yeah, and but in all seriousness, though, I think the only way, even though she is naked, the only way you could perceive that as her being sexualized is if you yourself are a pervert.
Yeah, so I'm a pervert, basically.
Well, I'm not calling you.
She looked good though.
Yeah. But I find the witch interesting in that it is like the antithesis to this paper. That the mostly, I mean, part of it is the historical context that they are going to be wearing lots of layers. There's this sense of humility and modesty, and that you can't showcase any part of your body. And I think that segues into the next point I want to bring up, which is some of the coming of age sexual identity stuff we see in the film between Thomasin and her brother Caleb. So throughout the film, we see Caleb looking at Thomasin's cleavage.
Yes.
And I think
obviously, in this time, sexuality is very stifled.
Very stifled.
Yes.
They're a family that's been exiled. He's not going to be around other girls. He's not going to be interacting with other women. So when I watched this, I wasn't weirded out. And I can imagine there are some people that would see that and be like, why is the brother looking at his sister's boobs? That's weird.
Mm-hmm. If you've grown up with siblings, that's not weird at all, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, there are a lot of people that would act
obviously
odd about that. And I find it really compelling that we have Caleb and Thomasin both sort of going through this weird, like, quasi-sexual identity situation, but in sort of different lights. So
different lights also in that a male is thinking about it before his body's even ready to do that, and a female might not even be thinking about it when her body is ready to do that.
Yeah, which is interesting because we see him,
and I think that's like kind of the perspective. Yeah, the perspective of those two that we saw.
Yeah, it's very realistic. The other thing I wanted to bring up is when you watch this film, and this could go back a little bit to the feminist angle. The trailer specifically, I kind of had this preconceived notion, like, okay, we're dealing with a family where the father's extremely patriarchal, that he's going to like rain down discipline on everybody. But the dad, I really had a lot of sympathy for.
He seemed, like very trying to Switzerland. It like still like kind of defending when Thomasin is accused, but trying to still keep everyone satisfied and just be like, look, we just need to survive out here.
Yeah, he was doing anything he could for his family, which I found very compelling, that it really felt like there's a feminist angle in terms of a woman coming of age and becoming free, but it didn't really feel like it was it's sort of, so if we go back to feminist theory with Mad Max, you can easily make the notion that it's a patriarchal society and that the men were holding the women back. And in this case, it's really society is holding her back, not just like the patriarchal society. It's both the father and the mother, and in this case, more so the mother.
Yeah,
I would argue in this
obviously
film it's
also
more of
the
a
discussion of her
matriarchal
being
family.
married off. A young woman, their entire lives are controlled.
Yeah.
In this time.
Yeah, and even then in this film, it was the mother that brought up marrying the daughter off. So very, very compelling on kind of like all aspects, that you could look at this film as this literal historical account that was well researched in terms of what people thought at the time of witches, but you can also take it in this very deep metaphorical sense as a coming of age movie.
I think it really this kind of story works really well with also like kind of the single set. All of it, we only see, some shots in the woods that could, just be anywhere around that, and then we have their home base of their like cottage, and I think we just barely see them at the plantation, but the majority of the stuff is occurring at the same place.
I did want to touch on the idea of like the religious themes, but the more I think about it, I think the religious themes and the feminist themes both sort of blend together, because they're both society. The religion, in a sense, is sort of what's holding her back from her potential like womanhood and being free.
The religiousness is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think both of those elements blend together. So I don't know, unless you have some.
Well, unless like did you see anything in the film that made you think that religious? I mean, other than assuming
Oh,
it's there.
here's what it is. God, I'm a freaking my brain's just farting all the time. The one thing I did want to talk about was this shifting view of Satan as, as more of an ideological from an ideological standpoint, if that makes any sense. So the one thing I thought was really interesting was when Black Phillip's back, baby. So when she goes off to the barn,
Yeah.
and she sees Black Phillip, they eventually
Fornicate.
No, they don't fornicate.
They do not fornicate. I'm sorry.
I honestly thought for a second, I was like, dude, if that happens, kind of ruin the mood right now.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, it kind of would have been a little out of left field.
But you were looking for it, apparently.
Well, I kind of thought, like, is this going to be a movie where I like everything, and then there's one scene where I'm like, really, dude, you had to go there? Definitely not that movie, which is awesome.
Well, I felt, just along that lines real quick, just the sort of gory elements we do see, they have their impact, but not over the top, really. Like, not... Like I was saying with the blood earlier.
I do really appreciate that about the film.
Yeah, we definitely see blood.
The terror we get doesn't
bloodbath.
come from, I wouldn't say comes from visuals of gore. It comes from the tension building up to, like, the reveal, if that makes any sense. Being it the reveal of the old hag, the scenes where they're lost in the woods. There's never it definitely strays away from any sort of traditional horror movie ideal that we are used to,
yes,
as a movie-going audience. But what I loved about the scene where she goes off into the barn after everybody is dead, and Black Phillip begins to talk to her. He says something along the lines of, like, "There's a book in front of you. Do you see the book?"
And it was
suggested
suggested earlier that she had already signed this book because she joked that she had in trying to tease with the child. But now we actually see
now her fate
everything she joked about coming to light.
Yeah. Well, what I find so interesting, and I could be getting a little ahead of myself, and maybe I just don't know as much about Satanism or Satan as we perceive him in today's society, is that, it's obviously, I think most people would look at the idea of Satan and think masculinity. But I would argue that Satan is more of this theoretical, like, idea or potential ideology of how you should live your life and how you should question everything, and that in itself goes beyond the realm of any sort of gender binary code, that he is not male or female.
No, I don't think in this film, like the shot we see of a figure behind her, like what I talked about after the film was it was even blurry to where we never even got a focus shot.
It sounds like a male's voice, and I remember
it does sound like a male's voice.
My initial thought before I had time to really think about the film was that, but a man is still leading her to freedom. But then I had to really break down, like, if we look at Satanism, especially in a modern society with the Satanic Temple, the Satanic Temple endorsing this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think they look at Satan as sort of like a male-like figure.
No,
they
and
look
just
at it
obviously
as, like, we want to adhere to this idea of questioning everything. And that is what ultimately is most important, and questioning things is what leads to freedom. And we see that early on with Thomason when she is praying in that one, like, sort of like scene at the beginning where she says, like, I've committed every sin.
Yeah, I've broken what stuck with me. Yes, I have broken all of the commandments in my thoughts.
Which is funny because that is such a normal human thing.
But also that coming early on, though, then you're like, so do you think about killing people? Because that's a commandment. So I mean, I'm not going to straight up call that foreshadowing, because it's like we're still led, even at the end. I think we still believe, like, what she has become. Like, she still wanted to be an innocent character. Like, she has lost her innocence, and not that she was raped, not in that sense, but, like, she has now made her, pact with the devil. But at the same time, like, even he says, "I will guide your hand." Like, she's the victim. I think she was the victim of this evil. And you see her, like,
but the evil is ultimately what frees her.
What frees her,
which
yes.
goes back to this paradoxical, like, thing, this paradoxical idea that I just, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I feel like I almost have it, but it's
dense.
It's so dense, and it's so compelling. with that, though, are there any lingering thoughts you had that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, along the religious lines, I found one thing that came to mind, with religion is the Exorcist. How the power of God though is in that film. Not saying the power of God is very prevalent. We see it in this film, but not in the exact same light, I guess, to where it's almost. You can almost watch this film and just see the religion as, oh, that's just part of the historical backdrop. But you can still, as a moviegoer who might not be religious, it's clear that the religion, that they are so tied to and turn to all the time is doing them no good in this sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's doing them no good because it's holding them back from everything. Thus, they are not free.
Because Satan is right.
Satan is always right.
Always right.
The other thing I found
Black Phillip is always right.
Hail Black Phillip. The another thing I found really interesting regarding the family was all of the little lies that kind of start to seep throughout the family. So the son Caleb defending his father William, saying, "No, we were looking for apples in the valley for you, Mom. We weren't out there trying to hunt." And then the father he had stolen the mother's prize silver goblet to sell it. All these weird lies that seep between the characters, kind of showing a lot of humanity. And I think at the heart of this film, even though it is this very terrifying
white lies that come back to haunt you.
It's just really interesting. It just shows how human of a film this is, and I think that takes a lot of good writing and a lot of good directing of the actors to have that seep through and for us to feel that.
Yeah, I think my favorite element of it, because I was weird about this at first, but my favorite element of the film, I think, is definitely the pacing. In that, you see that one, the first thing that really impacted me was the baby getting kidnapped and what we see happen after that, and that was early on in the film. So I was already feeling like an impact, and then the fact that it was after that we have more of a slow build up, and then bam, something goes on. And then it's almost unpredictable. The waves don't come consecutively.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say I think it was an interesting take for the director to start the movie off so quick in a way, but then the movie feels very looming and slow throughout the rest of the movie. There's not a lot of okay, every 10 minutes we can expect some sort of weird scare. It's every time you think something's about to happen, it just kind of fades away.
Here's your appetizer, but you're gonna get the meal in one side at a time. Basically,
what I love too is that for me personally, that the meal or the payoff really does come during the final few shots. I found
literally seconds before it goes to black. That was
her walking through the woods up to the Coven of Witches is an image that I don't know why I cannot shake it. I found it so,
and it felt so different, of the rest of the scenes in that movie too. At the same, other than the similar one at the beginning I was telling you about, it's almost just also nighttime. That's something interesting I never brought up. Was that we only saw a couple nighttime shots, and those were those shots, right?
I mean, I'm trying to think.
Other than the witch at night in the barn.
Oh God, that scene. That was a good scene. I mean, there's not it's not like they're just dilly-dallying around at night. The stuff we do see at night seems to be centered around the family. So the kids staying up listening to the parents talk, or Thomasin going out to the goat barn, and the one scene when her brother finally comes back
that night with Black Phillip that she'll never forget.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But in terms of this discussion, I feel like we've reached an end.
Favorite scene
In the movie? I'm not going to include the last scene because that is easily my favorite. I actually really liked when the mother was hallucinating the two children she had lost, and then it cuts to that wide shot where she's holding a baby in one shot and about to breastfeed it, and then it cuts to a wide where she's not holding anything.
Yes, she believes it's her baby that was kidnapped early on, but then it's a raven.
pecking at her breast.
And you see her wake up again with the blood stain on her shirt the next day.
I
too,
found that scene. I guess it was just the imagery that the kid that is the son Caleb.
That was the one I was gonna say.
Who's played by Harvey Scrimshaw. I don't know what else he's been in. I couldn't really find his name around. He's fantastic in this film. And I think honestly, besides that scene, the scene where he is laying in the bed after he is what we believe is molested or not molested. Attacked by a
this
witch.
is
I
the
don't want
scene
to
I
say
was going to
molested.
say is that's when we see the young witch who appears to be satisfying that sexualness, that
His urges.
his urges, and then he is found naked, and before dying he coughs up an apple, I guess, sort of as a representation of a sickness coming out, and then that's where I think
And I think
religion
that's a really
wise
interesting visual metaphor because the mother loved apples, but it really is kind of saying
well, it's also about him lying about we were the picking for the apples.
Yeah, never mind. Fuck the thought I was seriously. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, I
That
think
makes more
that's
sense.
where people who are religious, I feel like that if coming from a religious background, not being religious, but that's if I were religious, that would be the scariest thing for me because we hear him proclaiming how beautiful heaven is and talking about seeing Jesus.
That scene was,
and then he dies.
oh, so miraculous when he's like, "Oh, sweet Jesus, bathe me in your blood,
Yes.
kiss me on my face." Like that kid's acting was fucking amazing.
Phenomenal.
During that scene. It was. That was the one of the points in the film where I was so completely the ladies behind me could have been taking a gnarly
I was thinking they're
fart, and
I know that a lot of the people in here are thinking about or just hating this movie probably and not wanting to be here.
But going back to the scene with the older lady and not the mother Catherine,
yes.
and the Raven, I do think it's funny. I don't know if you remember one of the guys going, "Well, there's the twist."
Yes, because she sees, I guess, an apparition of the two children that are gone now, and sitting over there, and some man who has been trying this entire time to understand this film. Finally, he has an epiphany. His twist has come. They were alive the whole time. What a twist!
It was.
They weren't. It was. She didn't. She was hallucinating.
It was pretty hilarious.
I get it.
Still, I would honestly say that movie-going experience was worse than when my friend Steven and I saw It Follows. And we were one of the only people in the theater besides a group of teenagers sitting directly behind us who continued to talk the whole movie and just kept going.
And yeah, you said you feel awkward. You're like, oh, we're the only it's a group, that group, and us, and how do we? Turn around
it's
and tell
not
them
like
to be
anybody's
quiet?
gonna have our back if we're like, yeah, shut up. It's not like
Yeah.
other people are gonna be like, yeah, dude, shut up. It's
Tell him. You tell us.
because I'd be like,
You tell us to shut up.
I'm-
That's right.
I've told people to be quiet in movies, but I like to think that I'm sort of a pansy in terms of confrontation.
Yeah, no, that frustration builds in you for a long time before you finally say it.
Yeah, before you finally give into it. Anyways,
Please don't talk in movie theaters.
Just don't.
It sucks.
I hate the cheeky ass cartoons that always
Whisper
play.
once every 10 minutes or something. That's fine. Just be quiet.
I hate those cheeky little ads that are like, don't text, turn off your phone, don't talk, whatever. I would in all
They're not
seriousness,
effective.
in all
Not at all.
In all seriousness, I would rather have somebody texting during a movie than talking. I can avoid
Yeah, but
the
then you
little
got
white
light
light.
pollution.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. If
Well, I've
you're in a
actually
bit,
had someone, but I've been sitting behind someone who had a smartphone that was really fucking bright, and they were holding it up, and they would, I could see.
yeah,
it both ways, but
yeah,
when I-
super bright. That makes sense. But people do have brightness dimmers. Either way, they shouldn't do either of them.
Just be good, God.
Yeah, be good to each
God
other.
damn it.
Anyways, I think that wraps this episode up. Please, if you guys have thoughts, leave them in the comments. Let us know what you think. I always want to hear from you.
Go see the VV Itch,
The VV Itch, indeed.
starring Black Phillip.
Black. I really wish he was in the credits, Black Phillip.
as Black
Phillip.
Phillip.
Such an awesome fucking name.
How
I
much do you
wonder
think
if when Robert Eggers was writing he's just chuckling Black Phillip.
Let's write a short role centered around him. See how much it costs to get Black Phillip.
I wonder how much it costs to just rent a black goat for a day.
Yeah, but I want Phillip, dude.
You
Come
want-
on, he was
you
phenomenal.
want the real
He
deal.
was amazing. He
Start a
made
Kickstarter.
that film.
Like, write a 10-page script like I wrote the fucking prequel to The Witch all about Black Phillip. And you know what? Knowing
Just an evil goat the whole time. There's Satan.
knowing the movie studios, they'll dig into it. Before we get off here, I always try to end on this note, and I feel like we're not going to have too much to say. I always wanted to end on like, oh, what movies are you guys looking forward to? Blah, 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 whoever my guest is.
Ooh.
And I am so eager. So I know the distribution company that put out The Witch was A24. They're also putting out Jeremy Sloneyer's new film. And I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong because I'm horrible with pronouncing names. Green Room. So Mr. Slon.
Yeah, that looked really good.
Dude, you got to watch the Red
really
Band
good.
trailer. That comes out in April. We will be watching it the night it comes out and doing a podcast immediately after.
Uh-oh.
He did Blue Ruin, one of my all-time favorite revenge movies. He did it on a very low budget. This guy, in my opinion, is like a miracle worker when it comes to movies. This guy is like, when I watch a Blue Ruin, I literally had one of those moments where I'm like, I'll never be that good of a writer. It just won't fucking
So
happen.
this movie better be amazing.
Oh, dude, it has the fucking cast and it's crazy. Do you know the general premise of this?
I didn't know anything until you pointed it out when we saw the trailer.
The general premise is that it's a punk band playing a show at a venue and they get trapped in there by a bunch of neo-Nazis and then have to like fucking like fight their way out. And this guy, like, he knows what the fuck he's doing when it comes to tension, when it comes to dialogue, when it comes to character. Guys, check out Blue Ruin. Check out his first feature, Murder Party, which is hilarious and extremely well done independent film. That's the one I'm looking forward to, and I know that you saw the trailer. I didn't know we didn't really talk about the trailer afterwards. So I'm glad to hear that you dug it.
No, definitely.
Look up the Red Band trailer because that movie is going to be a bloody mess. And I'm not one for extreme gore, but when it's done right, I can get behind it.
It has its purpose.
It does have its purpose. Other than that, though, guys, like I said, put something in the comments. Let us know what you thought about the movie. Check us out on Facebook. Facebook.com/Shifted Cinema Podcast. And I think that's it. So stay informed, stay cinematic, and keep watching movies.